Action.
Sorry. Hi, Linda. Hi, Linda.
How you doing over there?
Just great day. How are you?
Oh, jeez. All right. Okay. So, I have a little spiel to read, but I think I'm just going to kind of wing it like I did over here. My name is Jayme Bayley, and I want to be your next sheriff. I appreciate you all coming out. Appreciate my friends and family supporting me. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about me and my 24-year career. I started out, I grew up in Hayford before that, and graduated high school, went off to Shasta College, did a little of that. I was figured leaving just one open, that way.
If anybody comes in, I'll aim them here.
If you want to, that's fine. If you'll do that,
Will do.
appreciate it. So I started at the Sheriff's Department in November 1998. I worked as a dispatcher and a correctional officer for 6 years. While I was a correctional officer, I took a small leave of absence and put myself through the police academy. In 2005, I applied in 2004. I was hired by the Anderson Police Department in 2005. I worked as a police officer and a school resource officer while I was in Anderson. I had an opportunity to come back in 2007, and I came back to the patrol division and worked as a deputy sheriff until 2011, when I was assigned to the code enforcement position. It was the first ever code enforcement position. So I was a part of the implementation, policy, procedure making. It is definitely what it was in 2011. It's not what it is now, but I was in on the beginning stages of that. In 2010, I completed my associate's degree in general studies with an emphasis in public safety and service. In 2013, I was assigned to the detectives division, and I worked mostly death investigations and assisted on major crimes for like the first 6 months. And then in June of 2013, I took over the sex crimes division. I worked all sex crimes until 2017. I also assisted in homicides, attempt homicides. I took other cases, but sex crimes was basically, those were my cases. No one else took those cases. In 2014, I was promoted to a frontline supervisor as a corporal. And in 2017, I was reassigned back to the patrol division, and that's where I'm currently assigned. I've had many extra duties over the years. One of the biggest ones is I've been the county's point of contact, communications coordinator for all of the county. So all the repeater sites, all the volunteer fire departments. There's an issue, a repeater goes down, someone's radios aren't working right, they basically get a hold of me and I make arrangements for our contracted person to come in and make those fixes. And so inside the department, I've been in charge of the policy reviews, system administrator for our computer, our CAD system, stuff like that. But why am I running for sheriff? Change. Ultimately, we need change. We need transparency, we need accountability, we need consistency, and we need leadership. And I feel like I have those qualifications, and I feel like I'm that person for that job. We need someone who's going to work with the community to try to find solutions to whatever our current issue is at the time. And we need someone who's going to communicate with you guys, give you your voice back. If there's a concern that's going on, you need to be able to call the sheriff and say, hey, this is a concern, as a community group or as individuals. You need someone who's going to listen to you, the community members. We need a sheriff who's going to protect and serve. And I know that's super cliche, and it used to be written on our patrol cars, and it's not anymore. And I don't know when that changed. That I don't know when I even realized it, but it's not there anymore. And that will be something super, super small, and maybe some people won't even notice, but the protect and serve will be put back on our patrol cars. I know you guys have been made promises as community members of Trinity County. I've been made promises too inside the department, and we've all been let down. And I will serve the citizens of Trinity County. I will work with the Board of Supervisors. I work well with the other government agencies that I've had to work with in my job assignments that I've already been involved in. I'm very much a supporter of the Second Amendment. If you are lawful and able to possess concealed weapons permit, I don't see a reason why I should stand in your way. I will abide by the guidelines, which I'm bound by that are set forth by the state of California. And so, state of California, United States Constitution, I stick with that. That's how we do our jobs. That's how we keep doing our jobs right. So these are really difficult times. Obviously, after the pandemic and everything, county's broke. County's always broke. We've been told the county's broke for the 24 years I've been here. We've been broke. I feel like the potential for change can be made. Obviously, the financial situation is tough. I'm not going to promise that I can put 20 deputies back on the street, or 10 or even 5 at this point. We're losing deputies as we speak, deputies and correctional officers. The marijuana industry is changing, moving towards more illegal growth. That we're in a crash. The money in the marijuana industry is going downhill. So there's areas of our county where marijuana was thriving a year ago, not so much anymore. Basically, I want to be that person that helps our county move forward in the right direction with an open mind. Legal grows, as long as they're in the right place. I know this is an opt-out area, it's in Lewiston, but if they're in the right place and they're doing the right things, they're following the county ordinances, they're following the state permitting process, the county permitting process, those aren't the people I'm worried about, because we have 5,000 plus illegal grows all over our county. And they're destroying our lands, and they're destroying our communities and our forests. I don't support illegal marijuana grows at all. They're detrimental to our forest land and our environment. I don't support water diversion, illegal land conversions, and they will continue to be a focal point under my administration. The major crimes that follow these illegal operations, they've caused our communities to be unsafe for both the community itself, our residents, and the visitors alike. Our visitors come here and they get stolen from, and it's the people coming off, it's not everybody, but it's people coming off of those illegal marijuana grows that are coming here to our communities and making this place unsafe. When monies are available, I will make sure to focus on updating our deputies in training. I was just telling these ladies over here, we're having weaponless defense training in April, and it will be the first time we've had weaponless defense training in like 7 or 8 years. We have brand new tasers that we just got issued. With that came a new training, because it was a new type of taser, so we had to do the training all over again. That's the first taser training we've had in 5 years. We're supposed to have that training every year. Those are all things that make us as deputies more confident in our abilities and our jobs to be safe. And if we're more safe, our communities are going to be more safe. Can't make these changes overnight. I wish I had a money tree. That would be super great. But we have deputies that have worked for us for 2 years that have never been to a training of any kind. Not an investigations training, not a basic, they haven't been training since the academy. We have correctional officers in our jail that are coming out of high school, and they're not getting weaponless defense training, they're not getting pepper spray training, they're not getting baton training. So we're putting brand new people that have probably never been in a fight in their entire lives into a jail facility, working with violent felons, because that's pretty much all we have in our jails right now. They're working with violent felons without any defense. They can't defend themselves, they can't defend their partners, and they can't defend the other inmates. I mean, our job is to protect the inmates from themselves and from each other while they're in our jail facility. And we have people that aren't getting that training. Those are things that I can fix. Like, I just found out the weaponless defense training that we're doing in April. The guy that's doing that training for us, he was certified last June. We haven't had weaponless defense training in, like I said, like 7-8 years. He was certified last June. Why are we waiting until April of this year to get that updated training? We needed that in June of last year. July, right then, when we first got it. Those are things we have to do. As a department, as a leadership, we can't wait for someone to get hurt. We've got correctional officers being attacked who have never had any training. And they're trying to figure out how to protect themselves. That's not fair to them. They need to be confident in their abilities, and it's our job to make sure that they can do that, and they can do their job to the best of their abilities with the confidence and the training that they need to do our job. Yes, dear.
Can you tell me why the current administration doesn't utilize funds that's available from Post for training to make that happen? Because since the pandemic, most Post training has been online and the resources would have been available. Do you know why that's not been done?
I don't. I can't answer that question. Those are things that, as the next sheriff of Trinity County, I will take every opportunity, every avenue available to make sure that the officers that we do have here are trained to the best of their abilities. Updated training. I haven't had an investigator course since I was in detectives. Just an interview training. They update those trainings every couple of years. We've got guys that have never had a training. I've had it, but it's been several years. Those are things, we learn new ways to interview people, because you interview a victim or a witness or a suspect. You interview them all differently. And so those are things that, even if we've been a cop for, 18 years, 15 years, you still want to redo those trainings once in a while and make sure that everyone's honing their skills, basically. So, yeah. This question I got earlier is, why are you running against the incumbent? Most of what I just said is why I'm running against the incumbent. I feel like I grew up in Hayfork. The majority of my career has been here in Trinity County. I've watched this department. I've worked in every division except for the administrative, the undersheriff and the sheriff. I've seen it. I've been seeing it. I grew up in this department, and it's really sad for me to watch these kids that are coming in and they're not getting the basic training, and then they're getting beat up in our jail, and they're like, what are we doing? And that's not fair. It's not fair to them. It's not fair for the deputies on our streets to not be trained. It's not fair for the community. These guys they're working their butts off. They're doing the best they can, but if there's a single deputy out there that'll tell you that they don't need any more training, they're wrong. We all need training. We all need updates. We're doing the best we can, but I feel like I can do more.
Does that come with finances also? You talk about budget and, and we're seeing it in the paper constantly.
Yeah.
About the sheriff's budget. Is that training part of that?
Yeah, so some of that would be fiscally. Obviously, we've got to pay for training and stuff like that. Post is a peace officer's standards of training, and that's what we are held by as peace officers in the state of California. And so there are a lot of trainings that we have to pay for up front, but Post reimburses us. And so it's like, we need to figure out, can we pay for this? I don't know how long it takes for Post to reimburse us, right here this minute,
Right.
but I will as the sheriff know that. And so we have to figure that out. But I'll tell you right now, Mr. Johnson, the sheriff down in Shasta County, is a fantastic guy. And I would be banging on his doorstep saying, hey, we're out of compliance at this training and we don't have anybody qualified at this moment. We want to get somebody to that training, but it's not coming up yet. Is there any way I could borrow one of your trainers to at least get us qualified until we can get our own trainer back up to... I don't know him. I've met him a couple of times, but I don't feel like if I went to him and said, hey, I'm begging you, I don't feel like he'd shut me down. Just if I went to any of the other sheriffs. I mean, we're all small. Yes, Shasta County is a lot bigger than Trinity County, but we're all rural county sheriffs. And I don't feel like they would shut me down on that if I have a specific training that I didn't have anyone qualified to do and that I could get that training, at least until we can get our own persons updated. So yeah, some of it's fiscal. We also have a deputy, a sergeant right now that goes up and trains at the police academy at Siskiyou County. And I believe it's in evidence collection. I can tell you right now, I haven't had an evidence collection training since I was in the police academy. He's our guy. Why isn't he doing a training for us on whatever the updated, like he's teaching it in the police academy, but we haven't ever had a training with him of our own, for our own people. Why not? He's free. We're already paying him. You know, like that would be 100% right off the bat. Get that guy in. I mean, evidence collection is super important to every single call that we go on. If we don't collect good evidence, we don't make a case, a victim isn't served in our community if that doesn't happen. Those are easy ones. That doesn't even cost us any extra money, except maybe an overtime day if we do, you know, on an overtime day. Anything else? Anything else?
How important do you feel after the pandemic and after everything that's gone on the last 5 or 6 years with the news media on the mental health and wellness aspect of the deputies that work for you, and what do you feel you could do to benefit your department?
So the question was, I've already forgot to repeat yours. The question was, and I'm just going to roughly summarize that, but basically with the pandemic and approximately the last 5 or 6 years with the news media and the attack on law enforcement in general, how important do I feel that the mental health and wellness of our officers is, and what would I do to address that? I have been in law enforcement for 24 years and I've been a peace officer on the street for 18 of those years. I know how it is. You gotta be tough. You gotta put on the mask, and you can't show emotion when you're out there handling the crappy calls that we handle. But I'm sure you guys see in the news, we all do. There are officers committing suicide every 22 hours, I think it is, 30?
Every 3 days.
Every 3 days in the United States, there's an officer committing suicide, a first responder committing suicide. And, you know, it's one of those things where mental health and wellness for our officers will be very important to me, and I will make sure that every officer knows that there are services available. I have attended the Code 9 project. When did I go? Last year? June of last year. I went to the Code 9 project. The Code 9 project is a 5-day training. They have 2 days for the command staff, 2 days for first responders, and then 1 day for the family. And it is the health and wellness of officers. It's suicide prevention. It's basically explaining to the officers why we are the way we are. We are different. When you respond to the types of calls that we respond to and go home, you can't talk to your family about the things that we see every day. You can't talk to your friends about the things we see every day. And so how do we deal with those things? Peer support. I'm a part of a couple of different peer support groups. Those things it's very important to me, and it will be something that's not forced upon people, but they just need to know that it's okay to not be okay. And it's still such a stigma all over, not just a Trinity County thing, it's all over, it's a stigma. If you're not okay after a call, then you're weak, then you're not good enough, or you're not man enough, or whatever it is. And all of law enforcement, all over the United States and all over the country and the world need to know that it's okay to not be okay after a really bad call. And then here's some services, here's some ways to learn about why we are the way we are, why we respond to calls after the fact the way we do, and how can we get better from that, how can we keep from being so horribly affected by those types of calls. And there's ways to do that. So that'll be something that's very important. Yeah.
So I heard you're talking ladies over there, it sounded like there's quite a few people leaving the department.
Yeah, so.
What are your reasoning why you think they're leaving?
So we have, right now, I know of 7 people who will be gone probably by June. 5 from the correction side, 2 from the patrol side. It's a combination of the reasons of why they're leaving. Some of it is the interdepartmental turmoil, the low morale, and what I've said at the beginning of this was, accountability and consistency. If you have one deputy doing something and he gets in trouble for it, but this other deputy's doing the same thing and not getting in trouble for it, those inconsistencies lead to low morale. If you work with one sergeant, you have to do your job this way. If you work with a different sergeant, you have to do your job that way. Those inconsistencies lead to low morale. So morale is a big issue right now as far as us leaving. There are officers leaving literally because of the way they're being treated. The other is money. And it's unfortunate because I know in the grander scheme of things of Trinity County, our deputies are paid well for the county, but when you can drive 45 minutes that way to Shasta County and make $8 to $10 more an hour and get a $15,000 bonus, how do I keep people here? We haven't asked our board for anything. We do our regular negotiations as a deputy sheriff association, but we as a sheriff's department haven't gone to the board and said, hey, we're bleeding people like now. Forget about the election and what's going to happen in June or whatever. Like right now, we're bleeding people, and it's treatment and it's money. You can make $16 an hour at Burger King. Our deputies are making, or our correctional deputies are making $17.24. I think that may have just gone up in January. So some change. So it's 17, like maybe 40 something or 50 something. But again, minimum wage is 15. Burger King, all these fast food joints all over the counties around us, they're all making $16, $17 an hour. And every inmate in our facility is a violent felon. And we're asking people to leave a job where you don't get attacked, or you don't have the potential to get attacked, and come work for us for less than $2 more. It's not happening. And they're leaving. Of those 7 people, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 are going to other agencies. And I think 4 of those are either going to Shasta or Tama, and we have 1 going the other direction. And we have a couple that are just leaving law enforcement in general. We've had, and that's just what we have right now. And then we have 3, 4, I think we've had 4 deputies leave in the last 6 months that have already left, they're gone. A couple of them completely got out of law enforcement. They were burned, and then I think a couple of them may be going to other agencies eventually. They left without another job.
So what will you do to entice deputies to come to Trinity County?
Yeah. So that's the hard part, is we do go up to the academies right now and we tell people, like, hey, come work for us. And they look and they say, Shasta's like $8 to $10 more an hour. Like, you know, and so that's hard right now. We have had in the past, Trinity County is a beautiful place. It is, we wouldn't all be here if it wasn't a beautiful place to live and raise your families, because the county as a whole is not a fantastically paid county. All the different department heads and divisions in the county, you know, we're definitely underpaid. We're always fighting with Del Norte and Mora County for who's going to be the lowest paid county in the state. That's a thing. So why did we all come here? Because it's a beautiful place to live. But now we have to call to the board and ask them. We need to be able to at least give them an amount of money to come here, and then the people who are here right now stay here. And I don't know what that amount of money is to keep people here and to get people here, but I'll tell you right now, what we're asking for right now is nothing. We're not asking for anything right now. Why? Why as a department have we not gone to the board and said, hey, we're bleeding people right now? Like, we need some sort of stopgap right now. I don't know if it's a 5% or a 6 or a 7 or something different, if they've got a different idea of what we can do, but we've got to ask for something, because they're down the road. They're 40 minutes that way, and some of the guys live in Shasta County and are driving up here. And so now you add gas prices to that and not a pay increase. Everything about it benefits them to stay there and to not come up here. Howdy, howdy.
Hey, Jayme. Thank you for coming out here.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. So, I mean, you know, there isn't a money train. There really isn't. We all know that. But, you know, if it was all about the money, none of us would have ever come here or stayed here, you know. So it's what other things can we do, and that's the morale, that's the training, that's the treating our coworkers with respect and working together and communicating. We've never had a department meeting, ever, since Tim took over. We've never had a department meeting. Not one to say, hey, these are my expectations, this is what I want, this is the goals that I have set, or a couple of years into it, like, hey, our expectations have changed, like, you know, nothing, no direction at all. And, you know, I came into this, communication is huge. It's how we work together, it's how we stay together as a team. Our team is super, super small, but we need to know. They have supervisor meetings with the sergeants. We don't ever get to hear what happens in those meetings. And there's only a couple of them, but you never get to hear what's in those meetings. Are we doing things good? Are we doing things bad? We find out when we get in trouble for something. You know, that's when we find out that something's going wrong, is after we've got in trouble, instead of, hey, we want to do things differently, let's do this, let's do that. Or you're doing really great at this, let's work on this. We don't get any of that at any level. And those are things that all leads to low morale. And I want to change those things. I can change. I will communicate. I will hold my supervisors, my sergeants, and my corporals accountable to the people that are working under them. We will work together as a team. Like, we have to. We're too small not to. We only have 2 deputies on the street at a time. We can't help but rely on each other. And we have people that aren't relying on each other right now because there's a lot of interdepartmental stuff going on. We can't afford that. It makes us unsafe, it makes the community unsafe. And so, yeah.
So, but I mean, it sounds like it's short of people and all that, but have they even looked into like the amount of overtime that they're paying?
That's,
Trying to fill in the gap.
yeah.
I mean, that's gotta be huge.
Yeah.
thing.
So the question is, with the staffing shortage, looking at the amount of overtime that we're paying, and that's an issue every year, and we argue. We as a Deputy Sheriff Association, which I've been president, vice president, I've been on the negotiation team for, I don't know, I think the most of the last 10 years. And we argue with that every time, the amount of overtime. We have this next month in April, we have like 15, something like 15 12-hour overtime shifts available. If somebody doesn't fill those shifts, we are gonna have one guy working the street at night by himself for the whole county. That's where we're at staffing level. That's how low we are. There is nobody else. And so the overtime shift that's terrible, you know.
Is there budget to hire and you can't, and the existing administration can't hire?
We're
Or-
struggling with hiring, and I'm not sure all of the details as to why that's coming into play. Like, I know part of it is they look at the pay. Like, why would we drive up here or move up here where the housing is limited at best, when you can start out making $8 to $10 more an hour in Shasta County? We have to address that issue. Housing is always going to be an issue until somebody builds an apartment complex, and then that'll get filled right away. I mean, housing is always going to be an issue. But at some point, the fiscal responsibility of paying these guys enough money to come here and to stay here has to be addressed. We've been arguing that, you know, the minimum wage has been going up. It didn't happen all at once. It's been going up every year. We needed to address that years ago so that we stayed ahead of the curve. They're like, no, sorry, we can't do it. Now we're $1.50 ahead of minimum wage. And now we are right where we're at, believing people. So you guys just came in on this, huh? I can go back over just a little bit about me,
No.
if you want.
Jayme, can I ask you? I have another patient, so I do that said that the county got like $1 million grant for distributing social services. Is that true?
I've heard that, and I've seen
Well, I mean,
that.
other people are getting hired to do it, so I think
Yeah,
it's
I've
right.
seen that. I just don't know of that $1 million, what, if anything, is coming to Trinity County, or to the Sheriff's Department.
So obviously there's money from the state, so why can't you know?
That's a very good question.
Yeah, so is that political arbitration, or what needs to be done?
I don't know at this point. I'm not in a position yet to look at those types of grants and read them and say, okay, this is what we can apply for. I know since the current administration took over, they applied for 2 different grants, and with the intent to put more officers on the street, because that was what was promised to us back when this administration took over, was put more officers on the street. And so these grants came around, and when they were filled, it actually took people off the street, away from the patrol division instead of into the patrol division. One of them is not filled right now, and we're actually going to have to give money back if we don't fill it before too long. That always hurts. And another one, we have a deputy trying really hard to work through that grant. It's not a school resource officer position, but it's basically like a juvenile school resource. There's some statistical stuff behind the grant. But he is also assigned to a regular patrol shift now, because we're that far down. We've lost people already. And he's also a field training officer. So we do have one in the training program right now. And so when he's training that guy and handling calls for service, when does he have time to meet all of the requirements for that grant? And I'm sure he's doing the best he can do, but he's also on a day shift, and day shifts are a lot busier. And with being the school position, he's got to be on a day shift because that's when the school's open. But that makes for a difficult situation when we're trying to do 3 different things and we're already super short-staffed, you know. He should be an extra person right now, not a person working a shift. So, yeah, those are things that as the sheriff, you know, I would be looking at it before I put a grant in place. I would make sure that it's going to do the things that is going to be best for the whole county. And taking people off the street is not best for the whole county, even if temporarily that pays for somebody's wages. If he's not working the street, why are we there? I also know that with our new jail facility that's supposed to be opening up anytime now, that is it's a 28 million, give or take $28 million building right now that's empty. 20 million of that is state money, and if we don't get that thing open real soon, we as the county are going to be paying that money back. That we've been able to, that date, I don't know that we have like a final, like if you're not in by this date, you're paying the money back, but I know we're definitely getting to that point where the state is like, what are we doing? Like, why are we not open? Why are we not in it? And there's a few things left. I know some stuff got damaged in that storm last summer, the July 30th, that started all the fires. There were some heating and air conditioning things that got damaged, and there's been a few delays. Of course, pieces and parts of the puzzle to get that building open, but we're really close. And the staffing level that we need to safely open that facility, if you took everybody in corrections and everybody in patrol, we don't have enough to safely open that facility right now. We may have to open just the bottom half. It is a 2-story facility. I'm not sure what the plan is right now because I'm not in charge, but I've worked in a jail. I worked in our jail for 6 years, and I've worked several other times, you know, at low staffing. I've worked in our jail. I know what it takes on the inside, and the minimum number of people to safely open that facility. We're going to struggle to have that, especially with the 7 that are leaving. Like if we had everybody that's staying right now, we'd be super close. But
Do you know if the county actually has it budgeted for the people to staff it?
I don't. I know that the county has been told we need this many people to staff it, this number of employees to staff it, to safely staff it. But like I said, we're down so many people right now, not counting the 7 we're about to lose. We're down so many people already that, you know, what we may call salary savings over here because we don't have enough employees is getting ate up over here, whether it's medical from the jail. I mean, there's all sorts of budgeting, you know, dances, I guess you might call it, that get played, you know, throughout the budget year. And one year, like this year, we've had major mechanical issues with our vehicles. I think we've replaced like 5 transmissions this year, randomly, at all different stages of vehicle mileage. No one budgets for having to replace 5 transmissions in a year. So, whereas we may have had some salary savings over here because we don't have enough employees, boom, if nothing else, just the mechanical alone is enough to eat up that piece of the budget and probably more.
You really don't have a salary savings if you have a shortage of deputies because of the overtime you're paying.
Yeah, I mean, and that too. But a lot of times, like if someone calls in sick, we don't have enough overtime. We just work alone instead of, I worked alone half a day last week. My partners work alone in the past as well. If those 15 overtime shifts in April don't get filled by people, we will be working alone. So, yeah, whereas sometimes the salary savings get ate up by overtime, sometimes there is no overtime, and then it's kind of a combination of all the above. It's a mess, don't get me wrong.
It's a safety issue.
Yeah.
What are the chances of us getting a second animal control officer, either full-time or part-time?
I would love to do that.
Yeah.
I know animal control is a big talking point. And I would absolutely love for that. Financially, without being in the guts of a budget right now, I can't answer that specifically. But if that is ever a fiscal ability, I would be all for that.
Now, is it part of that financed by the health department too?
I specifically where the money for animal control comes, off the top of my head, I don't know.
Okay.
But I mean, those are all things as the next sheriff. You know, I would look at all of those, as whether the health department has. I know they have a play in it because all the dog bites go through the health department.
Oh, yeah, there's so many animal
Rabies.
control
Yeah,
items in the sheriff's column every week, you know, I go,
yeah.
we really need more people to do this job.
Absolutely. I mean, and we've needed that for years. I mean,
Yeah,
that's always
yeah.
been, even when Christine was running it.
Yeah.
I mean, and now with Christina,
Mhm.
you know, it's always been an issue. I don't necessarily know that it's always been as important to some as others, but I'm very much a supporter of the animal control division, the animal shelter, animals in general. And so if that is an ability that I have at some point down the road, I would definitely be on board with that.
Good.
Yeah. Not much of a firing squad today. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Yeah. You know, my thing is I've been a part of this department for a long time, and I've seen the ups and downs and the ebbs and the flows, and having a good number of employees, and you know that dance, and I've just watched it for years as a Deputy Sheriff Association president and vice president and other different positions I've held. You know, and the money is always going to be a struggle. You know, the one thing I can tell you is I'm not going to make promises I can't keep. I'm not going to promise, you know, this or that. I do know, and one of the questions that's been posed to me I was in Salyer last week and I was in Mad River last night, and obviously those are at the, you know, ends of our county, and one of the questions that they always ask every sheriff every year all the time is a response, getting deputies down there in their area, especially when they call for help, whether it be a cold burglary that's a couple of, you know, they went on vacation and came back and found their house burglarized, or it's something in progress. We at times don't respond to those calls. For a variety of reasons that I really can't even speak to, because every time I get a call down there, I do my best to physically go there. The only time I don't go to a place is if the victim is not there. Because if your house was burglarized, I can show up, but if you're not there to tell me what's missing or what's not, I mean, I can see if there's a broken window or a door or something like that, but as far as what's missing inside, I can't help you with that until you're there to point that out. And so those are the times, as far as those types of calls, if I've not responded, that's usually what it's been, is the victim wasn't available at that time to meet with me to tell me what's missing. But, you know, that's the complaint from these outlying areas, is that we don't show up. And I don't know why that's happening, because on my shift, when I'm working on my shift, my guys show up. If there's a call in Southern Trinity, we go. If there's a call in Salyer, we go. But I can't speak for what's happening on other days and other times. And sometimes there's a legitimate reason why we're not going. If you have a burglary that happened over the weekend while they were out of town, and I'm about to go to that, and a physical fight breaks out, well, I'm not going to go to the cold burglary right now when I have to do this first. There has to be priorities. But we still have to show up. We still have to process a crime scene. I can guarantee we will never find suspects, we'll never get fingerprints, we'll never collect evidence if we don't show up to collect that evidence. And, you know, so a lot of times over the years, we've done things like send out mail-out reports for burglaries. We cannot collect evidence, there's no way we're gonna, I mean, the chances of us finding a suspect if we don't show up and collect evidence is slim to none, 0. We have to show up. Some guys do. I know some guys right now who are working their butts off. But everyone needs to be held to the same standard, and then the public will get the same service.
So with the construction of the new jail facility, and obviously it's much bigger, was there any kind of a commitment to be able to man staff that? In order to be able to build it, did we have to commit to, you know,
The committee.
without robbing all the, everybody off
Patrol.
the streets?
You know, as far as what was spoke behind closed doors between, that was, you know, when the jail started, it was Sheriff Haney, and now, when, you know, it being Sheriff Saxon, you know, as far as actual, like, written commitments, I don't know. But I know that our jail commander right now has been speaking the truth of this is what it's gonna take, and has been this whole time. Like, not just this year when it's like, ooh, it's about to open, we need all these people. Like, he's been speaking that truth for years. Who's listening or not is still kind of the question right now, as to why we're at. And some of the staffing issue has nothing to do with the jail, but now it is, you know, gonna be, the jail is the issue.
Is the jail still getting a lot of state prison prisoners that are getting transferred to the county jail? Or is that?
Yeah, so
Still
those
happening.
propositions, 47, 57, 109, all those things that happened,
Yeah.
they did lead us down a road where people who would normally be going off to prison end up staying and doing 2, 3, 4, 5 years in our county jail and taking up spaces for our small-time stuff that's going on here. And so that has made it more difficult. And then, you know, the pandemic that happened,
Yeah.
there was a point in time, and I can't even tell you how many months it was. It was probably better than a year where the prison just wouldn't take anybody. We had like, at one point, I think we had 20 people that were either supposed to be going to prison or going to like Napa State Hospital. And because of the pandemic, everyone just said, no, we're not taking anybody. And so we had like 20 people sitting in our jail, filling beds, where we couldn't bring people that are committing crimes in our community right now because those beds are being filled by people who really actually should be gone. And so that's kind of opening back up. We've sent off quite a few people that should have been in prison for a long time now. Napa State Hospital and there's another hospital like Tascadero and one other one. And so we're kind of getting back into the normal flow of those things. But still, I mean, there's people committing crimes in our county every day that, you know, and people are really upset with the fact that it's a revolving door if they ever get to the door. It's a 52, 53 bed facility. We're almost always over max. And every single person in that facility is a violent felon. Homicide, attempt homicide, some type of sexual assault, or just a violent assault. And so that guy that's got 15 traffic tickets and he's got failed to appear warrants like it's going out of style. Everyone's like, why isn't he going to jail? Why isn't he going, or the guy that's stealing from Ace Hardware like every other day or so, you know, why isn't he going to jail? Well, because we're already overstaffed, or not overstaffed, over max in our population. And we already get in trouble by the state because we have too many people in a facility. I mean, there's a Board of Corrections standards that we're supposed to follow, and we're always over. So, and that's a hard one. That, you know, when we get this new jail, it's 73, I think. But it will be filled like within minutes, and it will be the same thing, except for it'll be over max, and 73 will be our number instead of 52, 53.
What are you gonna do with homelessness?
So the question is, what am I gonna do with homelessness?
How will you approach it?
Yeah, how will I approach it? So, just recently, and I haven't met the person yet, the county has hired a homeless liaison. And I don't know, I feel like that's only been maybe a couple of months that that person's been on board. At least that's when I heard about it, was just a couple months. And so I need to figure out kind of what role they play and what services that they're offering that I know we didn't used to offer. And so with that, it's basically finding out what that is and what that's going to entail. But ultimately, we have our locals. They're not going anywhere. They're from here. They've lived here their whole lives. They're down and out for whatever reason it is. You know, is it mental illness? Is it the drugs? Is it the chicken or the egg? You know, which came first, kind of thing, you know? But they're not going anywhere. There is a time and a place where these guys come to town and they end up hiding out here. They're from somewhere else. You talk to them and they don't even know why they're here. Sometimes they're here to try to find a trimming job, you know, that kind of thing. And then if that doesn't work out, they end up spending some time on the street. One of my ideas, and it's been a little controversial. Some people see it as a positive, some people have seen it as a negative, but one of my ideas was, not for the locals, but for these people who come to town and they're stealing, you know, stealing each day, stealing for whatever, stealing for drugs, stealing for food, whatever it is they're stealing for. Those people are staying here because we're not doing anything about it. And a lot of that has to do with the jail. If we could take them to jail, and there were some consequences, you know, maybe that would deter them to maybe move along. With that being said, there are other things that I feel like that could be done. If this person comes to town, they're causing trouble all over town, whether it be a Lewiston town or a Waverville town or whatever, and they're just causing hate and discontent, and we're just driving by them and not looking at them, not talking to them. Why? Most of the ones who are committing crimes, when law enforcement make contact with them, they tend to move along because they don't want that attention. They don't want law enforcement attention. And so if you pay attention to them, and whether it be you get a consent search or they've committed a crime, so you make an arrest and you get a search, and now they've got some drugs on them. This is a hypothetical. They got drugs on them. They've got some paraphernalia on them. So I take them to jail for one day. Put them in a holding cell for a minute. They go see a judge the next day. They get put on OR terms, released under own recognizance, and you get search terms. So now every time I see little Billy walking down the road, and I know he's a drug addict, and he's not from here, and he's not being good, he's committing crimes, you know. If every time I have a chance, not when I'm going to a call, but every time I have a chance, if I stop Billy and I take drugs off of him, is he going to stick around? Probably not. That isn't going to work for everybody. But if it works for half of them, isn't that better than where we started? You know? And I've had people completely disagree with this idea, thought process. And I've had people say, "Oh, that's a really great idea." It's just an idea. The intent is not to just mess with people, because we really just don't have time for that. Especially, you know, the daytime when we really see these people out in public. We're going call to call to call. But if we have an opportunity to stop and take some drugs off of them and, you know, encourage them to move along, then is that a bad thing? I don't know. It's just a thought. It's just an idea. You
I was just gonna bring up missing persons, because I know that's a hot topic for Trinity County, because we've had quite a few missing persons, and it seems like there's not been much moving forward on it, so just kind of wondering where you stand on
Yeah.
missing persons in Trinity County.
So, yeah, unfortunately, where we're at with the staffing levels, we have one detective. And so he's doing all the sex crimes investigations, all the homicide investigations, all the missing person investigations. We do have a second detective who's technically a narcotic investigator. He's actually been helping because one person just can't do it all. But I think, and I was asked this question over in Hayfork by someone who's had a family member who's been missing for a long time. And my thought process behind it is, obviously I would love for our current detective to just be able to do it all. And that's just not reality, because every single day something happens. Another homicide, another major crime, another missing person, and everything else that he does. But my thought process was the potential of, we actually have a good number, and I don't know them all, but I know of them, a good number of retired police officers that live in Trinity County. And my idea was the potential of seeing if a couple of them would be willing to come on as just like a cold case. And you know, sometimes a missing person case has been worked until the cows come home and the detective has done everything he can possibly do, but now he has to move on because a new homicide, a new missing person. But a fresh set of eyes, they see something, and it wasn't any bad work by the first detective, it was just someone, fresh eyes, fresh experience, someone that's had a different experience in their lifetime as a police officer looks at this case and goes, oh my gosh, what about this? Maybe it breaks the case. Maybe some of our cases don't get broke that way, but it wouldn't hurt to try. I know of at least one person that's come to me that is a retired police officer who asked me if I would be interested in something like that. And I absolutely would obviously have to go through a vetting process and all of that, but if at the end of this I could get a couple of guys who are able to just sit down and pull out some 3-ring binders full of information, take a good look at it, and maybe we find something different, maybe we don't, I don't know. It's not a promise that I can make, but it's definitely the idea that I've had as a potential, especially with missing person cases, because we do have a lot.
Utilize the talents that are here,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
Well, even something as simple as resubmitting DNA, like they did in that state back east, where they found,
yeah,
and identified that 4-year-old girl that had been missing for like 60 years or something,
yeah,
just because somebody said, hey, let's try running the DNA through the database again,
Right.
and found it just went up.
and that would just be something by looking at those cases. Do we even have anything that we collected that has DNA, the potential of DNA on it? Some of our cases, we literally have slim to none as far as physical evidence goes. And so those cases are really hard, but, you know, maybe looking at an interview, or listening to an auto recording of an interview, someone might catch something. I know I do it in my cases. I listen to my own interviews all the time. And I'll listen to an interview back and they'll answer a question and it's like, not what they said, but it's like the way they said it. I didn't pick up on it at the time, but when I listen to my interview later, I'm like, ooh, there's something else there. You know what I mean? And so someone else listening to those audio interviews, could make all the difference. But we have to try. I mean, that's, and even if it's just 1 or 2 of the several retired in this, in this county, it's a different year. Maybe we catch something, maybe we don't. But that would be my idea as to the only thing I can think of right now with where our staffing is at that could potentially help.
Anybody? Good job, Betty.
So for those of you guys who don't know, there are buttons and yard signs out there, and for those of you who have yards that are visible, and I'll sit and chat with you guys for a few minutes.
So how do they get touch with you online if they want to get
Yeah, okay,
buttons
so
or anything like that?
contacting me, I do have business cards out here. The email is electjamie2022@gmail.com.
You're on Facebook?
I am on Facebook, and it's something very similar to that, like Jayme Bayley, I believe it is. I'm pretty sure it says elect Jayme for sheriff 2022 also on the Facebook page.
All right.
Turn that off.
Thank you for watching. Please remember to hit the subscribe button. And please remember to vote for your next Trinity County Sheriff, Jayme Bayley. Thank you.